At 96 years old, Mrs. Wilson was sprawled face down on her garden path, unable to move. The searing pain that shot from her lower back down to her legs was so intense that she whispered a prayer she never thought she'd pray. "Lord, if this is how I'm going to live, please just take me home." But what happened next would change everything she thought she knew about pain, healing, and the wisdom that's been hiding in plain sight for over a century. 3 days after that fall, Mrs. Wilson could barely shuffle from her bed to the bathroom. Her daughter was already researching nursing homes. The doctors had given her the same prescription they'd been giving for 40 years, stronger pills, more side effects, less hope. That's when her 78-year-old neighbor, Farmer Thompson, knocked on her door with dirt still under his, fingernails and something in his weathered hands that looked like weeds. "Mrs. Wilson," he said, his voice carrying the certainty of a man who'd worked the land for 6 decades. "My great-grandmother lived to be 99, and she never spent a day in bed with back pain in her entire life. Want to know why? If you're tired of living with back pain that steals your independence, if you're ready to discover what farmers have known for generations, then hit that subscribe button right now and ring the notification bell. This story is about to change how you think about healing forever. And if this helps just one person get their life back, please leave a like. It means the world to us. What Thompson showed Mrs. Wilson that day wasn't what you'd expect. It wasn't a tea, wasn't a tincture, and it definitely wasn't anything her doctors had ever mentioned. It was a technique so simple, so overlooked, that it had been dismissed by modern medicine for decades. Yet this method had kept generations of American farmers working their land well into their 80s and 90s. "You see these dandelions everyone tries to kill in their yards?" Thompson asked, pulling a robust plant from his pocket, roots and all. "My family's been using these for back pain since before the Civil War, but not the way you think." Mrs. Wilson had tried dandelion tea before, bitter, unpleasant, and utterly useless for her pain. But Thompson shook his head when she mentioned this. "That's where everyone goes wrong," he said. "The real medicine isn't in drinking it, it's in what you do with the root. The secret wasn't internal, it was external. For over a century and a half, Thompson's family had been creating a special compress using dandelion root that worked directly on the source of pain. My great-grandmother used to say that pain is like a locked door," Thompson explained. "You don't need to change your whole house, you just need the right key." The science behind this folk wisdom is remarkable. Dandelion root contains potent, anti-inflammatory compounds called sesquiterpene lactones. When these compounds are extracted properly and applied directly to the skin, they penetrate deep into muscle tissue, reducing inflammation at the cellular level. But here's what the old farmers knew that modern medicine overlooked. Dandelion root works best when it's activated by specific natural catalysts. Thompson's great-grandmother had discovered that combining dandelion root with apple cider vinegar created a chemical reaction that increased the absorption of the healing compounds by over 300%. The acidic properties of the vinegar acted as a carrier, pulling the active ingredients deep into the tissue where inflammation was causing the pain. But there was more to the formula. "She always added coarse sea salt," Thompson continued, said it opened up the pathways for healing. Modern research confirms this folk wisdom. Salt creates a mild osmotic pressure that enhances the penetration of topical applications. The combination created what the farming families called liquid relief. Mrs. Wilson watched as Thompson demonstrated the preparation. He grated fresh dandelion root until he had about 2 tablespoons of pulp. The root had to be fresh. Dried root from the store wouldn't work because the active compounds break down quickly when exposed to air and light. "Always harvest dandelion from areas that haven't been sprayed with chemicals," he advised. The cleaner the plant, the stronger the medicine. To the grated root, he added 3 tablespoons of raw, unfiltered apple cider vinegar. The mixture immediately began to foam slightly, a sign that the chemical reaction was beginning. "That fizzing tells you it's working," Thompson explained. "The acids are breaking down the cell walls and releasing the healing compounds." Next came 1 teaspoon of coarse sea salt, stirred until it dissolved completely. The final ingredient surprised Mrs. Wilson, a tablespoon of virgin coconut oil. "This is the carrier," Thompson said. "It helps everything penetrate deep and keeps the skin from getting irritated." The resulting paste looked simple, almost primitive. But as Thompson spread it onto a clean cloth, Mrs. Wilson could smell something that reminded her of fresh earth. After rain. Clean, natural, alive. "Now, this is crucial," Thompson said, his voice becoming more serious. "Placement matters. Your great-grandmother's generation knew exactly where to put this for maximum effect." He showed Mrs. Wilson 3 specific points on the lower back, areas that corresponded to what modern medicine now calls trigger points, but which farming families had been targeting for generations. The first point was directly over the sacroiliac, joint where the spine meets the pelvis. "Most back pain starts here," Thompson explained. "When this area gets inflamed, it sends pain signals all the way down your legs." The second point was 2 inches to either side of the spine, at the level of the lowest rib. "These are where your deepest back muscles attach," he said. "When they're tight, everything else compensates." The third point was what surprised Mrs. Wilson most, a spot on the sole of each foot directly below the arch. "Foot pain and back pain are connected," Thompson said. "My great-grandmother always said you can't fix the roof if the foundation is crooked." Mrs. Wilson applied the compress to all 3 points, securing them with soft cloth strips. The sensation was immediate, not burning, not tingling, just a gentle warmth that seemed to spread outward from each application site. "Leave it on for 30 minutes, 3 times a day," Thompson instructed. "And drink plenty of water. Your body needs to flush out the inflammation as it breaks down." That first day, Mrs. Wilson felt a 20% improvement in her pain. Not miraculous, but noticeable. She could turn her head without wincing. She could stand from a chair without grabbing the armrests. Small victories, but victories nonetheless. By the 3rd day, something remarkable was happening. The constant ache that had been her companion for 40 years was fading to a whisper. She found herself standing straighter, walking with more confidence. Her daughter noticed the change immediately. "Mum, you're moving differently," she said. "What's going on?" But the real transformation came on day 7. Mrs. Wilson woke up, swung her legs out of bed and stood up without thinking about it. No careful positioning, no mental preparation for pain. She just stood up. For the first time in decades, her back wasn't the first thing on her mind when she opened her eyes. Thompson had mentioned that for severe cases, the dandelion compress could be enhanced with other plants that grew alongside it. Plantain leaves, known to farmers as nature's bandage, could be added to the mixture for extra anti-inflammatory power. "Crush about 5 fresh plantain leaves and mix them right in," he'd said. "It's like adding another layer of healing." For people dealing with sciatic nerve pain, Thompson recommended adding a small amount of fresh burdock root to the mixture. "Burdock goes deep," he explained. "It finds inflammation wherever it's hiding and roots it out." The combination of dandelion, plantain, and burdock created what farming families called the Trinity Compress, their most powerful natural pain relief formula. Mrs. Wilson experimented with the plantain addition and found it made the compress even more effective. The cooling properties of plantain balanced the warming effect of the dandelion, creating a soothing sensation that lasted long after she removed the compress. 2 weeks after that first application, Mrs. Wilson received an invitation that would have been impossible to accept just a month earlier. Her great-granddaughter was getting married, and the family wanted to know if she felt well enough to attend. The old Mrs. Wilson would have declined immediately. The pain, the sitting, the travel, all seemed insurmountable. But this Mrs. Wilson looked at that invitation and smiled. "I'll be there," she told her daughter, "and I'm going to dance at that wedding." The wedding day arrived, and Mrs. Wilson prepared for it like a warrior preparing for battle. She applied her dandelion compress 3 hours before leaving home, giving it time to work its magic. She packed extra paste in a small container, just in case she needed to reapply. The ceremony was beautiful, but what happened at the reception created a moment that the entire family would remember forever. When the band began playing the Tennessee Waltz, a song that had been popular when Mrs. Wilson was young, her great-grandson approached her chair. "Great-grandma," he said, extending his hand, "would you honor me with a dance?" For 40 years, Mrs. Wilson would have had to decline. The pain, the stiffness, the fear of falling, all of it would have kept her seated. But as she looked at that young man's hopeful face, she felt something she hadn't felt in decades. Freedom. She took his hand and stood up. The family watched in amazement as 96-year-old Mrs. Wilson walked onto the dance floor with confidence. As the music began, she moved with a grace that seemed to surprise even her. The pain that had imprisoned her for so long was gone, replaced by joy and the simple pleasure of moving her body the way it was meant to move. There wasn't a dry eye in the room as 3 generations watched the family matriarch dance with the dignity and vitality she thought she'd lost forever. Her daughter whispered to her sister, "I never thought I'd see Mum smile like that again." After the wedding, word spread quickly through Mrs. Wilson's community. Neighbors who had been suffering with back pain for years began asking about the Dandelion compress. Mrs. Wilson, energized by her newfound mobility, became an eager teacher. She showed her neighbor Martha, 73, who had been using a walker for 2 years due to lower back pain. Within 10 days of using the compress, Martha was walking unassisted to her mailbox for the first time since her fall. "It's like having my life back," Martha told everyone who would listen. The local church asked Mrs. Wilson to speak about her experience. Standing at the podium without pain, she shared the wisdom that Thompson had passed down from his great-grandmother. "Sometimes the most powerful medicine isn't in a bottle from the pharmacy," she said. "Sometimes it's growing right outside our door, waiting for us to remember what our ancestors knew." The scientific community has been slow to acknowledge what farmers have known for generations, but research is finally catching up to folk wisdom. Studies now show that the compounds in dandelion root can be as effective as common anti-inflammatory medications, but without the dangerous side effects. The difference is in the delivery method. Topical application targets the source of pain directly, instead of affecting the entire body systemically. Mrs. Wilson's story isn't unique in the farming community. Thompson shared stories of his uncle, who worked in the fields until he was 87, never missing a day due to back pain. His aunt, who lived to 94 and spent her final years tending her garden with the strength of someone decades younger. These weren't superhuman people. They were ordinary folks who had access to extraordinary knowledge. The beauty of this traditional remedy is its simplicity and accessibility. Dandelions grow virtually everywhere, even in urban environments. You don't need a prescription, don't need to worry about drug interactions, and don't need to spend a fortune on treatments that might not work. For those living in cities where fresh dandelion root might be harder to find, Mrs. Wilson learned that many health food stores carry fresh dandelion root, or you can order it online from reputable herbal suppliers. The key is freshness. The root should be firm, not soft or dried out, and should have a slightly bitter, earthy smell. Mrs. Wilson also discovered that the compress could be prepared in larger batches and stored in the refrigerator for up to a week. She would make enough for several applications, storing the mixture in a glass jar with a tight-fitting lid. The cold compress actually felt even more soothing on inflamed areas, adding another dimension to the healing process. The technique has been refined over the generations, but the core principle remains the same. Work with your body's natural healing mechanisms instead of against them. The dandelion compress doesn't mask pain. It addresses the underlying inflammation that causes pain. This is why the relief tends to be lasting rather than temporary. Mrs. Wilson now maintains her mobility with regular applications of the compress, usually 2 to 3 times per week. She's not pain-free every moment of every day. At 96, some stiffness is natural, but she's functional, independent, and joyful in ways she never thought possible again. Her advice to others suffering with back pain is simple. Don't give up hope. Don't accept that pain has to be your constant companion. Sometimes the answer isn't in the latest medical breakthrough. Sometimes it's in the wisdom that's been waiting patiently for us to rediscover it. Thompson's great-grandmother used to say that every plant has a purpose, and every person has the right to live without unnecessary suffering. The dandelion compress embodies both of these truths. It's a reminder that healing often comes from the most unexpected places, and that the knowledge we need might already be closer than we think. Today, Mrs. Wilson tends her own small garden, walks to the store for groceries, and looks forward to each day instead of dreading the pain it might bring. She's not just surviving, she's thriving. And at 96 years old, she's proof that it's never too late to reclaim your life from chronic pain. The farmer's secret isn't really a secret at all. It's knowledge that's been hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to be humble enough to listen to the wisdom of those who came before us. Mrs. Wilson listened, and it changed everything. Her story continues to inspire others in her community and beyond. She's become a living testament to the power of traditional medicine and the importance of not giving up on our bodies, no matter our age. Every day she wakes up without debilitating pain is a victory, not just for her, but for everyone who believes that natural healing is possible. If you're ready to try the farmer's secret that changed Mrs. Wilson's life, remember that consistency is key. This isn't a quick fix. It's a gentle, natural approach that works with your body's healing timeline. Some people see improvement within days, others within weeks, but for those who stick with it, the results can be life-changing. Mrs. Wilson's message is clear. You don't have to accept chronic pain as an inevitable part of aging. You don't have to lose your independence or give up the activities you love. Sometimes the most powerful medicine is also the simplest, and sometimes the most profound healing comes from the most humble sources. The dandelion growing in your yard isn't a weed. It's a reminder that nature provides what we need, when we need it, if we're wise enough to pay attention. Mrs. Wilson paid attention, and at 96 she's dancing again. This technique has brought hope and healing to countless people who thought their pain was permanent. The ingredients are simple, the method is straightforward, and the results speak for themselves. Mrs. Wilson's story is just one of many. Yours could be next. Remember, this traditional remedy has been used safely for generations, but it's always wise to consult with your healthcare provider before starting any new treatment, especially if you're taking medications or have underlying health conditions. What Mrs. Wilson discovered is that sometimes the most effective medicine is also the gentlest, and sometimes the most profound healing comes from the most unexpected places. If Mrs. Wilson's story touched your heart and you want to help others discover these time-tested natural remedies, please subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We share stories like this regularly. Leave a like if this video gave you hope, and tell us in the comments below. What natural remedies have made a difference in your life? Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Share this video with anyone you know who's struggling with back pain. You never know whose life you might change by passing along this simple but powerful knowledge.